Hey guys, it's Albert, and this is my recap of Z Nation Season 2, Episode 3, Zombie Road. Yeah, this was, in my entirely subjective opinion, kind of a step down from last episode. There's a lot of times when you can see where they're getting their influences from on Z Nation. The first season you had Die Zombie Die Again, which was obviously kind of a Groundhog Day, and more recently Live Die Repeat style of a movie reference where you have the same thing happening over and over again with different variations. And similar extent with I forget the name of the episode with Citizen Z and the Cosmonaut, sort of playing tribute to the psychological thriller and what's real and what's not real. This one was very obviously written by someone who had just seen Mad Max Fury Road and said, we should do that, but with zombies. We could get like a big rig and we can have like other guys driving by and shooting at him occasionally, and there could be like a thing in the big rig and people... And the thing is, the idea is cool. It's not a bad idea, alright? I'm not knocking the concept of paying homage to Mad Max in this zombie world, because they've done it before and they've done it great. Die Zombie Die Again, especially on like a second viewing, for me is one of my favorite episodes of the show. This is one of my least favorites. I don't know that it's one of the worst, but at this point, when you start out this show, your expectations are kind of like, I don't know what this is, and then eventually it builds you up, and you're like, all right, now I'm in. So maybe there was a few episodes at the very beginning that were a little bit weaker than this, but this really felt like, again, especially after last week, it felt like a major step down, and partly because it came after last week, because last week had this giant, thing that happened with Mac dying, Addie shooting him as he turns zombie, coming back to them, just shaking her head, no, he's not okay. And they're like, oh man, that sucks. And we also have a new guy on our team who we're not going to talk about. And it's a very, I understand one of the strengths of Z Nation is that they don't hang on to stuff for a long time. They don't spend a bunch of time on the sort of trivial things, like in the beginning of the season, and I kind of dithered about it back and forth, but in the beginning of the season, you had them getting everybody back together, and it's just like, all right, we're back together. Now we're going. Like, we resolved all that stuff. It's a little bit muddled and rushed, but we're putting them back, and we're going, and now we can move forward with the plot, and we get to see episode 2, and we're, really thankful they didn't spend 3 episodes not like, well, people wandering around trying to find each other. That's fine, but I needed more of Addie grieving. I grieved for Mac. When I saw him die, I was like, what? No! It was a huge moment in the show. Anytime any main character dies is a huge moment. Last season, you had the episode where Garnett got bit, and there was a whole big thing with with Murphy as the zombie messiah or whatever, and Warren had to shoot him. And the following episode, first of all, we got a good amount of comedy, which was really nice because you have that big heavy thing, and then it follows up with, okay, now we're going to have our, zombie roadshow, shooting gallery thing. And we got to see her deal with it. She's sitting in the bar. She's yelling at, the bartender as he's turned zombie, as if he's Garnett. Why did you leave me? You were supposed to be there for me, and now you're dead, and blah, blah, blah. And great episode, great scene, all that stuff. And in this one, we get none of that. There's nothing particular. The Z-Weed's kind of funny. I mean, there are definitely funny moments in here, but compared to what we know and love about Z Nation, this episode is a lot weaker on the humor than other episodes. It focuses on characters that we don't care about and we're not going to see again. Like, you throw us in with this guy who's, at the head of the convoy, and his kind of not all there friend / I don't know what he's supposed to be, and then like the son, as it's revealed, like it's supposed to be some big reveal, like, oh, I'm the reason that we're keeping all these people alive, and it's just put together very, very just sort of sloppily. The editing seemed a little sloppy in this, and maybe there was it seems like that there was stuff that just got cut. It seems like that in my mind, there had to have been a scene written where they talk to the new guy and they're like, we don't trust you. And he's like, but you need to trust me because you need me or whatever. But that obviously either didn't get filmed or didn't make it into the episode because he's just with them now. And they're like, all right, yeah, we're working together. And I was willing to accept that in the previous episode because they're on the run and everybody's shooting each other and it's a big firefight and okay. Like, that's kind of, maybe you don't have time to sit down and talk about how much, you trust or don't trust each other and where did this guy come from and all that. But now they're on the road and some time has passed and you can infer like, all right, well, they probably had that conversation, but why don't we get to see it? That could actually be very interesting. Certainly as interesting as anything else that we saw in this episode. I'm not trying to, beat on it too much, but I was really... I just felt like that this was a weak episode, and it's not out of mean-spiritedness either. The thing is, I know Z Nation can do a great episode. This was a cool concept, and they could have done really well with this. I mean, the last episode was amazing. There have been a lot of amazing episodes. It's a great series, and I'm not saying I'm going to stop watching it. But if you keep making episodes like this, I'm going to stop watching it. So I'm hoping that it gets back on track next week. Of note, plot-wise, in this episode, and there's not a ton, but we'll start out with the new special Zs, which we may or may not see again. They're called blasters. And apparently, zombies that get turned into zombies by a nuclear explosion are super zombies that, first of all, run like Olympic sprinters times 2. Kill you by bashing your head in with their head, which I thought was an interesting kill. They just hit the guy in his face with their faces until the flesh flayed off of him. Don't know why their flesh didn't come off since they're dead and presumably rotting and he's a fresh person, but let's not dig too deep into that. And the zombies themselves were actually really neat, especially the recurring zombie characters that kept on coming back. They seemed like really interesting. We haven't seen that very much in this show where there's a zombie that keeps coming back and keeps being a problem because usually you can just kill him. It's like, oh, there's a zombie, cronk. And so the fact that these super blaster zombies were coming back and were able to be a reoccurring plot point and be characters in the show, for lack of a better word, for most of the episode, that was neat. And it was a cool change of pace. And the other thing that we found out was that Murphy can't control these zombies, which we've kind of seen already in season 1 at the final episode where they're in the lab. He tries to go and do his zombie things and, he's like, oh, these guys don't like me. Turns out sometimes zombies don't work for him. Like, it's normal zombies that work, that he can, control with his mind. But the other zombies are basically off. There are some zombies that are off limits, which is cool because you don't want to overpower Murphy. I mean, giving him too much power, not overpower him as in holding him down. If you give him too much power, if you give anybody too much power, they become boring, right? You run into a problem like Superman, where Superman is super strong and invincible, and he can fly and laser beams. And who are you gonna have fight this guy? Well, we have to basically invent another Superman to punch him because that's the only thing that's gonna hurt him, and magic. So it's either I was going to say Deathstroke. I don't think that's the guy's name. That's a different character. Or Mr. Mixoplick. So I'm glad that they're giving Murphy limitations. Like, some zombies he can't do. He is actually in danger from other zombies occasionally. And that was neat. And we also saw some interesting developments with Cassandra, which was interesting because while we didn't get a lot of sort of fallout from seeing Mac die in the previous episode, we did get some fallout from 10K saying, Cassandra's a little bit different now, guys. It's sort of weird. It's kind of unsettling for me, which I'm glad that they addressed. I was worried that they were just sort of going to let her be weird and be like, oh, no big deal. Everybody's sort of okay with it. But 10K is like, this is wrong what she's turned into. She's not her anymore. Is she still in there? Is she a zombie? Is she... he's asking the questions that we're asking. And maybe not getting answers, but it's just nice to have that acknowledged that, like, yes, that is weird, 10K. You know what else is weird is that Addie's not grieving for Mac at all. That's also weird. I'm not saying it leads to anything. I just think it's poor writing or a missing scene or something. Because, I mean, again, I am going to harp on that a little bit. Last season, we saw after Die Zombie Die Again, she only remembers killing her mother, right? Like, it's not like she just now did it, but in her mind, it becomes fresh. She realizes, oh, I killed my own mom at the beginning of the zombie apocalypse. It was a traumatic experience. And she goes crazy in the next episode. She's, like, going nuts and ends up joining that weird cult of all women because of how much that affected her. And now Mac dies, and she's like, yeah, I'm good. How are you guys doing? You back here in the sick wagon? Yeah, you guys probably going to turn into zombies, and that's going to be a problem later. Oh, well. Really? Nothing else? I needed more. I'm belaboring that point. I'll try to stop. Also of note in this episode, the Z-Weed, possibly, and it's interesting that they're coming back to that because it's really, I think it was season 1, obviously, but episode 3 or 4 in season 1, that Doc was in the air shaft and was smoking the joint and blowing the smoke in the zombie's eyes, and the zombie was starting to get a little stoned too. And what's neat about this show is it can have that scene, it can have that episode and say, haha, this is a joke, but also it maybe means something. Because we come back to that, and they're smoking the Z-Weed, Murphy's getting some Z-Weed, he blows some of that in Cassandra's face, and Cassandra starts, like, we don't know exactly what's going on, but she starts getting, in my mind, it seems like she was starting to get a little bit more human. She says, I can feel again, for lack of a better word. Which I thought was interesting that Murphy, in his uncaring state, was actually willing to be like, yes, I will, I want to help you become more human, even though he turned her into a sort of a zombie. But in the next episode, they're teasing, they're going to have like a whole Z-Weed like potential cure. I don't think they're actually going to cure the zombies, but it's really neat to explore that angle, and to go back to something from so early in season 1 and say, hey, we didn't forget about this, and it wasn't just a throwaway. We put it here, and it means something, and we're going to come back to it, and maybe that'll lead towards more of a mythology going forward in the seasons. I'm not exactly sure how that's all going to work, but, stoners save the world. Yeah, other than that, I'm looking at my notes here trying to think if I've missed anything. I'm sure there's some little plot points and stuff, but really, this episode was focused on the tale of the dad and his son, and you can see where that could have been compelling, from a writing standpoint, but the way it was edited and the way it was acted, and I don't want to be mean, but I feel like a little bit of this responsibility is on the shoulders of the actors that they had playing the father, and particularly the father, and also, some of the other ancillary characters. There's that one cool female character that's just on the big rig. I don't think she ever says a word, but she's got like the face paint. You know who she is, and 10K and her are kind of having a thing. Like 10K always has a thing with all the cool chicks in the show, and then she gets killed, and it's just like, what was even the point? What was the point of having her there and pointing, like, when they do that with a visual and they show you, like, all right, she's got specific, like, she's wearing makeup, kind of like a weird pattern on her face, or that scars or something, like, remember this character. Oh yeah, we're not doing anything with her, we're just going to kill her. And then also we're going to have this long drawn out story about his dad and his son. They're trying to get to, I forget what the name of the town is, but some town up in, Canada where it's cold and the Z's can't get them. I did like, the one thing that really resonated for me at the very end of the episode was the idea of going to that town being sort of a metaphor for going to heaven. He's like, yeah, we're going to, and he knows he's dying, and he, talks about going to the town. That I liked, going to a place where there weren't any Z's, at being sort of, again, a metaphorical heaven type thing. But it was weak. It was a weak episode, in my opinion. So I'll be watching next week, although I will be late. For those of you who might want to tune into next week's recap by me, I'm going to be at the Mile High Film Festival on Friday, watching some, indie horror film. And so I won't be here to do the recap on the day of. I'm actually doing this one a day late too, so I'm sorry about that, but I was super tired last night, so I couldn't do it directly after. But I will get one up later on in the week after I get back, but it'll probably be Tuesday before I'm able to get back and watch Z Nation and recap it. So if you're interested, I will be back, but it'll be late. And yeah, let me know what you guys think. You can tweet me at Albert_Berg on Twitter, or if you're watching this on YouTube, leave a comment. Let me know what you thought of the episode. Maybe you really liked it. If you do, tell me what you liked. Tell me what it worked for you and maybe what didn't work for you. And tell me what you'd like to see going forward. And I will see you guys next week. Bye.